Hi, this is Gail with Beaded Jewelry Diva. Today's project is going to be this bracelet, Russian spiral, per everyone's request. So apparently y'all liked the Russian spiral intro that I did, so we're doing a whole project today. And if you enjoy this video, please go ahead and give it a thumbs up. I thought I'd throw that in there right in the beginning. Also, keep on watching through this entire video because at the end I do have some helpful hints about things that you might come across in any kind of beading project, and they're just helpful hints that you might enjoy learning some tricks for. So let's go ahead and get started with this Russian spiral bracelet. For this project we are going to need some peanut beads. You can also use a size 8 seed bead if you like to. I have some size 15 beads. These happen to be purple, some size 11s that are green, some size 11s that are pink. I have a size 11 beading needle. I have a pair of scissors, a pair of cutters, round nose pliers, flat nose pliers, 2 head pins. Mine happen to be 2 inches, but you can probably use like 1.5 inches or so. 2 4 millimeter beads, doesn't matter what they are, I just happen to be using pearls. And for this one I'm going to be using Wildfire, the .008, because this is a little thicker than Fireline. So this is going to be great for keeping our project together. Now that we know what these supplies are, let's go ahead and get started. We start by doing wrap loops for both of our head pins and beads. You can see that I've already made the wrap loop on this one, and I'll show you real quick how I did it on this one. I do have an entire video on wrap loops if you want to go review that. So I am just going ahead and I'm just going to do this real fast. And I've marked on my pliers where I want my loops to be so that both loops are the even size. Let's see. So you can see the second loop. And you want a little bit of a neck on this one. And you'll see why shortly, but my loop has about 3 wraps on it. So 1, 2, and 3, and clip, and I will fix the rest of it off camera. Next I have my needle, and I am going to go ahead and thread on the following sequence. I'm going to thread on a 15 purple, 2 pinks, 1 of the donuts or peanuts, 2 purples, if I can see them, 2 purples, a green, and a peanut, a green, 2 purples, and a peanut. So this is the sequence. 15, 2 11s, peanut, 2 15s, 11 peanut. And let's just get this one more time nicely in focus. There we go. So that's the sequence that I'm going to use. So you want to leave yourself, probably 8 or so inches. You are going to go ahead and put your needle back through all of the beads, draw it into a circle, and pull them tight. Now if you've already seen my my video on how to do Russian spiral, you'll know how to do this. If you don't know how to do Russian spiral, I suggest that you go ahead and go back to that video right now, because I'm not going to do a whole lot of explaining at this point about how to do Russian spiral itself. So I've got my purple and 2 pinks, and the peanut, of course, and through the peanut. So the 2 purples and the green, purples, green. And by the way, I chose these colors because I wanted things that would kind of stand out on camera. I figured this green, if nothing else, you can't miss it. Okay. Green and 2 purples. And peanut, and through this. Now I'm going to do this 2 or 3 more times off camera. You can see that I've got about 4 rounds done, and what I'm going to do now is take it off the orange wood stick. Be very careful about your working thread end. Don't let it get too loose, but what you need to do is thread a needle onto your tail end of the thread. And we're going to go ahead and tighten up this end because it's still a little loose. And you may be wondering why I'm doing this right now instead of later on like I normally do. You'll see in just a second. So be very careful, but go ahead and go through at least 1 additional time, and I'm going to go through, I think, 1 more time because I want this very tight. But be careful if your size 15s don't allow you to do it, like this one is not allowing me. Oh well, when all else fails. And of course I just broke that bead, so oh my. But for the purposes of this video, I won't worry about it. So you see, I screw up all the time, so don't feel bad if you do. Okay, so now this is tightened, and I'm going to take one of my pearls, and I'm going to put it up through. You just have to kind of wiggle it in until it comes up through. There we go. So you can see it's coming up through. Now again, I'm going to go ahead and see if I can do a little bit more tightening over here where I broke the bead, if I can. And I want to tighten this up because I don't want this pearl to be coming out. Alright, here we go. I've tightened it up a little bit more. So let's see about getting this more in focus. So you can see that I have the loop outside, and the pearl is on the inside, or the 4mm bead is on the inside, because what I'm doing is I'm using that bead to hold this loop in. So instead of sewing a loop or something like that, this is what I'm doing to create a loop on the end. So what do we do about this side then? Because we've got that pearl in there. So how in the world do we go ahead and put the, the orange wood stick or the straw or whatever back in? We can't exactly do it. So guess what? You get to learn to do this by hand. Yes, without any sort of help, at least in the very beginning of a stick. Alright, so we left with a purple and green and 2 purples. So our next is going to be the purple and the 2 pinks, 2 pinks, peanut, through, and be careful, make sure that everything ends up where it's supposed to. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull down. So I'm not pulling up, I'm pulling down. That creates a little bit more tension. And you can see how I've got this between my fingers. I'm going to take this, move it over just a little bit. I'm still holding on to this very tightly. The next one I have are, let's see, 2 purples and a green. And obviously you can use any colors, and as you can tell from, whoops, see, almost forgot my peanut. As you can tell from the very beginning, you can see that my bracelet is actually a different color. I wanted to go ahead and show you this with the bright colors right off the bat because this is going to be easier for you to follow the pattern. You can see the different colors a little bit better than you can in the bracelet that I eventually made. So you can see where I'm still pulling down, and my next one is going to be green and 2 purples. Let's see. Gosh darn, these purples are hard to see. Okay, green, 2 purples, peanut. Through the next peanut. Pull, pull down, move. So you're going to be doing that until you have a few options. You can do this for a while between your fingers until it gets long enough, and then you can go ahead and put back in the orange wood stick or perhaps a straw. Or you can keep on doing this all the way through. And what I am going to do is, or what I did, is I actually did this by hand all the way through instead of using like a straw or anything. And the reason I did that is because I wanted it a little bit tighter than usual. And I can get a little bit tighter doing it by hand rather than I can for an orange wood stick or something like that. Alright, for this bracelet you can see that I've got a lot done. Now I'm going to show you how to put the pearl in on this end, because this is a little trickier than putting it in on when you're starting. Now I goofed on this bracelet and I used a 6mm bead, which is, I found, really difficult to put in this end without it doing all sorts of funky things. So in case you accidentally use a bead that's a little bit too big, here's how I'm going to fix that. In this, my pattern is 2 greens. My greens are my 15s, and then I have a gold 11. So I'm going to put in 3 15s. So instead of 2, I'm putting in 3, because what I'm going to do is I'm gradually going to make this end a little bit bigger to accommodate this bigger bead. So once again, you can see that I make mistakes all the time, but as they say, a mistake is just one way to go ahead and figure out something else different to do. Okay, this one, I am actually only going to take 2 beads, 2 15s. So I've got my gold, my 2 15s, and let's see if I can get this in focus a little bit better. My gold, 2 15s. And the reason that I'm going to go ahead and just use just the 2 15s instead of another 3 15 is because I want to make this a little bit bigger, a little bit more gently. In other words, this round I'm going to go ahead and put one set of 3 of the 15s. The next round I'll put 2 of them, etc., until I reach the 3rd one. So I'll show you this one, and then I will go ahead and do a few more rounds so you can see how I put that final pearl in. If this wants to cooperate with me. The beads are just not in my favor today. And you can see I'm keeping this a little bit looser as far as tension goes. I'm not making it real tight at this point. And you can see where I've got it pretty loose down here too. This is something that I'm going to go ahead and fix because that's way too loose. But I kept it a little bit looser because I knew that this bead was going to have a little bit of a problem fitting in there. Let me go ahead and do another couple of rounds, then we'll go ahead and put the bead in. Okay, I've done several rounds, and the pearl pretty much fits in there. It's a little tricky to hold on to, but it pretty much does fit in there. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and start, as you might guess, I'm going to start decreasing the number of the 15s that I'm using. So my next round are green, greens, and golds. So green, green, gold, peanut, through the peanut. And this is going to help to start stabilizing a little bit. Yikes. This does not want to stay put for me. So, being very careful is what you have to do. There we go. I've got it in. So the next one is gold and then 2 greens. And I'm decreasing quickly. You notice that I increased gradually. Well, I'm decreasing quickly because I, for one, don't want this bead to pop out on me again. So you can see it's starting to get snugged in there. So, and then I've got a green and 2 blues. So how are you enjoying this so far anyway? Russian spiral, I think I mentioned before, is a pretty forgiving stitch, and it can be a lot of fun. Now let's see. Now see, that's still too loose. It just popped right on out there. So what I'm going to do, because I really want to keep it about this length, I am going to go ahead, and the next one would be green, green, gold. So I'm going to do green, green, gold, and I am not going to put in the peanut. Just green, green, gold through the peanut. So now you can see I'm ending this. So green, green, gold, peanut, and then I'm going to go ahead and tighten this around a few more times. So let me go ahead and do that off camera so I don't bore you unnecessarily. So give me a few minutes and I'll be right back. Alright, I've got this trapped in there, so it's not going anywhere. This is still real loose in here though, so what I need to do is tighten this up some. And of course we're just going to use the normal method for tightening, which is to go ahead and run down through the beads. So I'm coming out of one of the peanuts, and I'm just going to go ahead and run down through the line of peanuts. And like you can see this big long thread here. We don't really want to see that, do we? So, and pull, and you can see where the thread is pretty much disappearing. Now I do have some thread that's probably still going to stay just because I made the mistake and made a bead too big. Well, what can I say? But what I'm going to do is tighten this up a bit and take care of any loose edges, and then I'll show you about putting on the clasp. Now it's time to go ahead and put on the clasp. I've gone ahead and made my own clasp for this. Now obviously you can use any clasp that you want to, but I decided to do something a little different for this particular one. Now if you would like for me to do a tutorial on how to make this kind of clasp, please go ahead and just put a note down below, and I'll know that if you want to go see something like this or not. But what I'll do is I will open this, and so the whole idea is you have these loops here so you can insert whatever clasp it is that you want to use. So if you want magnetic, if you want hook and eye, which is kind of what this is, whatever it is that you want, you can go ahead and put on this bracelet. So for the other end, you can see I've got my hook. Well, this is my eye. Put it through. Voila! And I have a nice little dangle too, so it adds a little interest to this end. And that's it. That's this particular bracelet project. Now I do have a couple more little helpful hints coming up, so stay tuned for those little helpful hints. Meanwhile, I hope you've enjoyed this video, and that if you don't already subscribe to my YouTube channel, that you'll go ahead and subscribe, and so you'll never miss another video. I'd also love to see you over my website, www.beadedjewelrydiva.com, and stay tuned for some helpful hints. Helpful hint number 1. If you are running low on thread, you've got a large needle, and you need to start tying off, here's what I've done before successfully when your thread is just getting a little too short. So you go ahead and do your loop, your half-hitch loop just the way you normally would. Then you take the end of your needle and put it through the loop. draw it tight. Now I'm using a little bit more thread than I normally would in this case, but what you're doing is you're going ahead and creating a loop, but since you're backing your eye into it, it gives you a little bit more in the way of thread. So if your thread comes out of your eye at this point, it's no problem. You just go ahead and pull just like normal. Loop. So that is helpful hint number 1. Have you ever been in a situation where you have really just run out of thread and maybe you don't have enough to really tie off well and you need to go ahead and start another thread? Here's an easy way to do it so that you don't lose whatever your space is. Because sometimes when you're doing something like this, it's easy to forget, well, gee, where did I leave off? Here's a simple way. So you can see, and I'm going to try to get this up close and personal for you. You can see where the thread is coming out of this bead. What I'm going to do is I've gone ahead and threaded a new piece of thread on my needle, and I'm going to go into the beads, the last set of beads. See if I can get this. I'm going into them. And I'm going to go ahead and trace the path. So I'm going to go down just a few beads. Again, just following the thread path. And then I can either go ahead and pull off. Then when you see I've got all my working thread here, well, guess what? Your working thread is coming out of the correct bead. So all I have to do is rethread it and continue beading, and after I've gotten a little ways away, I can go ahead and end both of these threads. And that's an easy way of going ahead and making sure that you are always starting back up wherever it is you're supposed to.